That's where, blast off happened, right? That's where I became, okay, now I am like in self-leadership. Now I see myself, and it helped me, motivate myself and keep myself on focus and target for that next role. Hi, WCT-NCR. I'm Tracey Allen, and this is my masterclass on how to thrive in tech. I think what's important is not so much the jobs and the roles that I've taken, but the journey I was on, right? Being a woman in technology, I think that, we're surrounded with a lot of engineers. And in tech, there's a lot of merit put on being an engineer. You would see that obviously engineers were, there was a lot of credit there. If you weren't an engineer, it was more difficult to maybe get those opportunities. What was important for me is that I stayed focused on what my expertise was, which wasn't engineering, right? It's actually different, it's business, which I could bring life to what the engineers were trying to do, right? So there was a complement there. But I also had to really kind of stay focused and really kind of look at where I can add value, right? Where can I have an impact being in an engineering environment as such? When I look back at the time it took me a long time to get there, right? When I look at my career, I've been there for 23 years. It's been a wonderful experience, but I've had to work really, really hard to get to that next level, right? As I was, feeling kind of insecure, let's say, and I had some scarcity issues with myself being that I can't move up, I looked at it as I need to develop and create some very key relationships, right? I need mentors, I need coaches, and I need leadership. Where I got a lot out of my mentorship is I have people hold a mirror in front of me to tell me how much impact I could bring to the organization, what values I had, how great I am at certain skills where other people didn't have that, right? I find as women, we have a hard time seeing ourselves. For me, what helped me kind of grow through my career is that by having mentors and people who could see me for what I was and could help me see that, that's where, blast off happened, right? That's where I became, okay, now I am like in self-leadership. Now I see myself, and it helped me, motivate myself and keep myself on focus and target for that next role. As women, especially with the imposter syndrome that we live with, we can't see that for ourselves, right? I mean, when we look at jobs, we go, we can do 3 out of the 10 things. The reality is a man would walk up to that and say they can do 10 out of the 10, right? So we really need that network around us to help us see who we really are. What was really, really important, besides all the mentoring I had at work and the relationships and the network I had and the stakeholders that I've developed relationships, was that I invested in a coach, a mindset coach, as well as a spiritual coach. And that has been honestly a game changer for me. I'm not saying I don't have imposter syndrome anymore. I don't say that I have all my beliefs are fixed, but I'm working on it. And it has changed the way that I see myself. It's changed the way I approach problems. It's changed the way that, I've become confident and I believe I can do a lot more. Don't second guess yourself about investing in yourself as a woman. I do it. I still do it today. Like, oh, I gotta pay these bills. Should I invest in that mindset coach? Yeah, do it. It's a game changer in yourself, right? About what you believe about yourself, in your personal life, in your job. So I would say that's one thing that, it has been very, very critical for me. The other piece I would say that, I've created a huge network at work in terms of stakeholders and so forth. So I think that's really important in being clear on what your expectations are. Having a voice, right? So it's great that you have all these like wishes and aspirations, but you need to start talking about them with people, right? So I spend some time doing that. Like, here's what my next job looks like. This is what I want to learn. Here's how I want to grow. And what happens through that is that people, after you say it, it becomes real, right? So then people hear it, and then there's opportunities that come up, like, oh my God, Tracey would be great at that. Tracey wants to invest in that. That's where she's, looking to grow. And then those opportunities will present themselves. The glass ceiling is still really real. I think it's also, something that we can overcome. But with that, I think that we need to kind of step back, take a look, and see where we want to go. Be very clear with yourself. Dig deep inside yourself to find that purpose. That purpose that you have and that alignment with your values will get you what you want, right? It's really about kind of living and breathing what you really want and being very clear and intentional about it, right? I always used to think like life is happening at me, but it's not, right? We have to be intentional about what we want. So make those steps, take charge of what you want to do in your life, right? Make those real, and then that's kind of how progression happens, right? And manifestations happen. It's not just by magically thinking about it, it's actually doing something about it. For me, leadership is all about, maximizing your people's growth, right? And really kind of being there to support them in their journey. We're empathetic. These are things that are natural for us, right? That's something that we're just born with that, right? It's a traits that women have. How do we use that in the workplace? Right? How do we differentiate ourselves around that? I can tell you that is what people need today, right? And that for me is my superpowers. That's what I lean into, and that's how I lead my people, right? Is with empathy, compassion, helping them grow, develop, being there, being in the moment with them, right? Not thinking just of the KPIs that businesses tend to run on, right? And stakeholders need to be watching that. But as a leader, my job is to make sure I maximize the growth of my people using those traits that are different than the men. I believe that we are now sitting really nice in the next generation. If you look at Gen Zs and millennials, this is what they want, right? This is what they need. This is what business needs, right? This command and control leadership is not what people want. As women in leadership and to be in executive positions, it takes, well, first of all, let's just say it takes a lot of courage, right? Let's not pretend it's easy, right? It takes courage, but I think, one of the things that holds us back in terms of, going into leadership, or even I found myself this year was a little bit challenging when you're moving into executive leadership. There's a lot of more demands on you. What you may find yourself, even you end up in a people-pleasing, scenarios, right? Because I felt like, oh, I am so fortunate, right? They picked me. I need to overdo this, right? And I need to please them because then I'm not worthy of this role. And it's something that's very, very, predominant in women. And it's something that I continuously work on, by the way. It's not something that you have one session and you figured it out. It's because it's so ingrained in our conditioning, right? But it can be also very dangerous at work because you can stretch yourself quite thin, right? By always trying to think that you need to do more and more to deliver. It brings you to a certain place. I think it gets you somewhere to from A to B, but remember, what got you to A, B doesn't get you to C. So if you want to get into that executive kind of, realm, I think you have to have boundaries. And that's what I'm learning about a lot in my mindset, with my mindset coaches, working on my boundaries, right? And not accepting things that wouldn't be acceptable to anybody else, but for whatever reason, I think it's acceptable, is creating space for myself to be strategic, right? So I think that's important for women in executive positions, especially if you have a family. You have to have boundaries to be able to, let's face it. I mean, even though you're an executive, it doesn't take away that you're a mom. You have to be able to do everything, right? So you have to create boundaries and you have to create space to be able to deliver on all these. Or if you don't deliver on everything that you is important to you, then you feel left like you're unworthy or you're not able to meet everybody's needs, right? Which is a deficit and a scarcity mindset where we end up, right? So really important that, if you're going into executives, making sure that you create space, you create boundaries, right? People pleasing isn't going to get you where you need to, right? So that's where, again, more boundary work in terms of being firm, being clear,